I've had my Takomo 101s for over 18 months now, and I have loved them. However, I recently made a shocking discovery which could change all of that. In this video, I look at whether the Takomo 101s could be hiding a big problem that not a lot of golfers know about. So if you have a set of Takomo irons, or if you're thinking about buying one, you'll want to stick around for this one. I have been using the Takomo 101s as my irons for about 18 months now. I love them, I've been super happy with them. If you want to see kind of in-depth impressions of them, I did a review video, which you can find here or on the channel. Essentially, I'm a big fan of these. They are every bit as good as the irons I had before, which were the Titleist T350s, at a fraction of the cost, and I have basically had absolutely no cause for complaint. However, I recently happened upon a discovery which has given me some cause for concern and maybe made me think about switching out of these sooner than I was expecting to do so. Had been thinking about moving into something slightly more suited to my handicap level. These are kind of a beginner's iron. Bought them not long after I started playing and now down to about a 10.
Ooh, you're hard, showing off.
So I thought about getting something more for a mid-handicapper or potentially something custom fitted. I had been looking at the Takomo 201s, but now I'm thinking that that might not be such a good idea and that potentially I might move away from the Takomos altogether. The core of the issue is to do with loft. Now, if anyone is a golf newcomer and you don't really know what I'm talking about when I talk about iron lofts, essentially the loft of a club is the angle between the ground and the club face. So if you had a 0-degree lofted club, it would be basically perpendicular to the ground straight up, like a croquet mallet or something like that. And if you had a 90-degree lofted club, it would be parallel to the ground like a hoe? Enough of that. So essentially all clubs have an amount of loft that changes depending on what club you are using. They tend to get more lofted as you go down through the bag. So a 4 iron has less loft than a 7 iron, which has less loft than a 9 iron, which has less loft than a lob wedge. The strongest you'll tend to see on a driving iron is around maybe 18 or 19 degrees. And then the weakest you'll typically see on a lob wedge would be 60 degrees, although some people do play 64 degrees. Now, the Takomo 101s are strongly lofted, which essentially means they go quite far and they have less loft on the equivalent clubs than irons used to have in the old days or traditionally, or than you would see on some bladed irons and some kind of less game improvement styles of irons. So this is the Takomo 101 7 iron. This has a stated loft of 30 degrees. Traditionally, a 7 iron would have been something like 35 degrees. And in fact, that is what you will still see on certain sets of blades. So something like the TaylorMade MBs or the TaylorMade TWs like Scotty Scheffler plays. Those have a 35 degree lofted 7 iron. So this 7 iron in the Takomo 101s, and to be fair, in a lot of game improvement irons, which are sort of geared towards high handicappers, will have something like 30 or 31 degrees of loft. This is not an issue. This is not the problem that I'm talking about. It's just the way things are in the modern game. And as I say, even more so with game improvement irons, hollow headed irons like this. So it's not an issue in and of itself, it's just the way things are in the iron market these days. You know what you're getting when you're buying an iron like this, you know what the lofts are going in, or at least you think you do. Now, while it may not matter that the irons are stronger lofted than they used to be or than if you were buying blades, what does matter is that you get the lofts that you are supposed to be getting, and even more so, that those lofts are evenly spaced out throughout your set of irons. I think you might be able to see where I'm going with this. The reason the dispersion of your lofts is so important is because it directly relates to the dispersion of your distances. You want to have fairly even yardage differences between your 5 and your 6 iron, your 6 and your 7 iron, your 7 iron and your 8 iron, and so on. If the lofts aren't evenly distributed, then your gaps in your yardages are unlikely to be distributed either. And I do know that it is becoming vogue these days to measure club gaps in terms of ball speed miles per hour rather than pure yardages, but the same kind of thing applies. You do want your clubs to be evenly spaced out to give you even distances so that you are able to cover different distances with the clubs in your bag. So these are the stated lofts of the Takomo 101 irons, as you can see listed on the Takomo website. As you can see, the 4-iron is at 20.5 degrees, the 5-iron is at 23 degrees, the 6-iron 26 degrees, the 7-iron 30 degrees, the 8 34, the 9 39, and the pitching wedge 44 degrees. Now, I say stated on the website quite pointedly because, again, I'm sure you can see where this is going. These are not the lofts of my set of Takomo 101s. I had my lofts checked almost by accident recently, and what I discovered was genuinely quite shocking.
I'm stunned. I'm shocked.
My 4-iron is 22.5 degrees. My 5-iron is 23.5 degrees. My 6-iron is 24 degrees. And my 7-iron is 31 degrees. Yeah, so that is a 2-degree weak 4-iron, a half a degree weak 5-iron, no big deal there, a 2-degree strong 6-iron, and a 1-degree weak 7-iron. And that's a problem. It's a problem because it means that essentially I have not 1, not 2, but 3 5-irons, and then a 7-degree gap to my 7-iron, and absolutely nothing in between. I basically don't have a 4-iron, and then I have nothing between 2 5-irons and a 7-iron. Now, this is an issue because obviously it now means that I know about it and think about it, and I have lost a degree of confidence in playing these irons, which is a great shame because I have very much enjoyed using them for the 18 months or so that I've had them so far. And it also is an issue and has been out on the course. Now, this is not revisionist history, and in fact, you can see some very stark evidence of this if you look back at one of my recent course vlogs. I will link it up above, but essentially on the Collingtree course vlog that I did a couple of months ago, there are 3, I believe, separate instances where I take out my 6-iron to hit what I think will be 6-iron yardage, and the ball goes 15, even 20 yards long of my target, to the point that I actually take my 6-iron and scream at it at one point because I can't really understand what's going on.
What is wrong with you?
Well, now I know what's wrong with my 6-iron. It is in fact a 5-iron fancy dressing as a 6-iron. It's been a similar issue with my 4-iron, where I will hit it what I think is going to be a given yardage and it comes up short. My assumption has long been that I'm just not hitting it cleanly enough, but it also is a 5-iron masquerading as a 4-iron. It also means that now I step up to a shot needing to hit the ball, say 175 yards, and I have no good options. If I have that kind of yardage into a par 3 or into a green, I don't know what to do. I can try and kind of baby the 4-iron or 5-iron or 6-iron up there, or I can try and absolutely smoke the 7-iron. But either way, I'm not going to be committing to that shot with full confidence because I just don't think those clubs are going to go the yardages I want them to. The next question is, why has this happened? And is it typical? Well, I don't know why this has happened. I have done some digging to see to what extent lofts of irons can change over time. I do know that it is advisable to get your lofts checked every couple of years, presumably indicating that they can get knocked out of shape in some way or other. But the general consensus seems to be that it is very minor at most, maybe 1 or 2 degrees, and also that typically only happens with forged irons. The Takomo 101s are not forged irons, and again, general consensus is that non-forged irons typically won't change their loft almost at all, even after repeated use, and certainly in the case of only having them for less than 2 years. Also, even if they had got knocked out slightly, you'd think that that would only be maybe a half a degree or a degree at most. There are some pretty chunky discrepancies in the lofts of these clubs versus their stated lofts, so that suggests to me that at least some of the issue was present when I received the irons in the first place. As for whether or not this is typical, I really don't know. I did do some digging online and I couldn't find a lot of people saying that they had discovered the same issue. Now, whether that means the issue doesn't exist or whether that means people just don't know about it, I'm not sure. I certainly hadn't even thought to get my lofts checked this early on in my ownership of these irons. The Takomo irons haven't been super popular for that long, so it's possible that people just haven't checked their lofts. And again, with an iron like this, which is geared towards a more beginner golfer, a higher handicap golfer, maybe getting your lofts checked regularly isn't something that you do at that level. Maybe the type of player who owns the Takomo 101s isn't the type of player who's going to be getting their lofts checked every 12 or 18 months. As I say, it wasn't something that was on my radar. It happened almost by chance, and it's only because of that that I have discovered the issue which I am now telling you about. I am not an expert, I am not a club fitter, I am not a loft checker. I don't know if this is widespread. As I say, I certainly haven't seen a ton of people talking about it online, but this is the experience that I have had with these clubs, kind of unknowingly up until this point. So what does this mean for me? Well, as I say, I had been considering changing out of these irons, not because I wasn't liking them, but because I had thought about getting fitted for something or just moving into something better suited for my game, which thankfully has improved / changed quite a lot since I first bought these irons. Now I am wondering whether there is a risk with the direct-to-consumer irons that I hadn't kind of previously thought about. Obviously, at the price points you've got, it's hard to argue against the value. But if you're ending up with a set of irons from a direct-consumer manufacturer, whether that's Takomo or someone else, which doesn't have the lofts that it's supposed to, and therefore doesn't have the gapping it's supposed to, that's not necessarily something that I would want to risk. So if I do stick with Takomo, I had been thinking about going with the 201s. I would certainly go and get my lofts checked pretty much straight away, or I might just move into a different brand or manufacturer altogether. The most likely thing is that I will, as I have recently done with my driver, actually just go and get a fitting so that I can feel comfortable and confident that what I end up with and what I end up putting in the bag is the best that it can possibly be for me. I hope this is of some value and some interest. Obviously, Takomo as a brand has exploded over the years. I have been a fan and I still am a fan. This is just something that has come to my attention that I thought it might be useful for other people to know. It's obviously a part of my golfing journey, but I do know that a lot of people are buying and loving and using these irons elsewhere. So it just might be something that if you do have a set of Takomo irons, you might want to go and check, or you might want to think about before you go ahead and purchase. Also, if you do have some Takomo irons and you do go and get your lofts checked and you find that something similar has happened to you, or perhaps you already know that you've got a similar issue, please do let me know in the comments below. I'm genuinely curious as to whether this is just me being unlucky or if this is actually an issue which has affected other people out there. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video and found it useful. I would love it if you could drop a like and subscribe to the channel for more videos every week, and I will see you in the next one.